And Rooted in Sports Monday is back alive right after a short but long 1 week hiatus. Right, got my
Right.
boy Swan Don, the
Yes,
ball,
sir.
young
Yes.
ball.
Yes, sir, man. Through much perseverance, here we are yet again on another Monday evening. You know what I'm saying? About to go ahead and do what we love to do. You know what I'm saying? Get into the sports, man. Got a little we the NBA schedule came out this week, so we're gonna kind of jump into that a little bit. Just talk about a few games that we might be looking for in this upcoming season, and then obviously, we getting into football season, and we're gonna go ahead and get back into our rooted in football segment, kind of our upcoming preview, and we're going division by division. And today we got the NFC South. So it
Mhm.
should be real interesting. Hey, now that I was thinking about it, as a matter of fact, I think college football starts this weekend. I think there's a few games this weekend, and then
It usually
everybody plays
starts.
next weekend.
It usually starts the weekend before the weekend, obviously before the NFL starts. So I mean, you might be
Mhm.
right. You
But
you see, yeah.
but either way, man, football season is in full effect. Most teams just played their second preseason game, so for a few guys, we got to see a lot more of our number one, so to speak. We got to see a little
Mhm,
more of some of these guys, and a few quarterback battles have kind of became clearer. One who I'm sure we're going to get to,
mhm.
and yeah, man, it should be a real fun episode, man. Really fun episode. So,
Yeah,
hey,
no,
man,
it's gonna it's gonna be good. And if y'all wonder why I said young bull, he's joining us from Philly, right? He had to take
man,
a work trip from Philly, so he's over there eating cheesesteaks and um
bro, you know what?
man.
I haven't had one yet, but you better believe before I leave it this week, I'm gonna get one, man.
Oh, you have to. You gotta go to cities and take advantage of the surroundings and take advantage of what it has to offer. Like me, I went to Chicago. I had to get deep dish.
Oh yeah, yeah. I had to put my young boy on. I done changed his life. I done changed his life. Shout out to
Most
Jeff
definitely.
Donos.
Shout out. But let's get into this intro and let's go ahead and knock out our segment, man, and get us some sports updates.
Yes, sir. And just like
So,
that,
like I said, you spoke a little bit about the NBA schedule, right? I'll be honest, like I said, I've looked at the NBA and things of that nature, but obviously I'm more focused on the NFL season coming along. So I'm interested to know what were some of the games that you've seen that you pinpointed that you said, okay, this is going to be a big game or this is going to be pivotal, maybe to the outcome of the NBA season, maybe before and even after the All Star break.
well, I'm gonna start early. I know right out the gate. I believe either that's night one or night two. Right
Mm-hmm.
out the gate, we got Dallas, October 19th. Actually, we got Dallas going to Phoenix, going back to the scene of the crime where in Game 7 they went out there and blasted the number one seed on their way to the Western Conference Finals. And what was probably a little bit of an unexpected outcome um, for those who weren't believers of Luka Doncic yet. He surely made you a believer after that series last season. So
It's true.
that should be a really interesting matchup. Um, Obviously, the Phoenix Suns were able to bring DeAndre Ayton back, so they're gonna kind of roll right back with the same crew. They're gonna kind of do it again. So I think it'll be really interesting to see the Phoenix Suns and their mindset coming into this season. whether they still have that same grit and that same determination to go out there and kind of, bum rush the league as they've done the past couple seasons, although they don't have a championship to show for it.
Mhm.
Excuse me. But I think that'll be a very interesting game. I'm gonna jump a little bit here.
Jump
Um,
around. Talk to us.
um, well, I'm gonna come back to that one. I believe it's November. Yes, November 22nd. I don't want to hear from anybody, okay? Because we got the Brooklyn Nets at the Philadelphia 76ers. We got Ben Simmons going back to Philadelphia for the first time,
And
since they let him go.
mhm.
And well, I'm here in Philadelphia now, ironically. Um, Obviously, we know how these Philadelphia fans are.
Mhm.
They're going to let him have it.
Yeah,
Like
they are.
he is it's gonna be brutal for him. Um, I'm interested to see how he handles that mentally. I'm interested to see how he'll play or even fit with this team because I mean we haven't seen him play in a while, and we all have our criticisms of him and why he isn't playing and um kind of the sensitive nature that he seems to take on as far as his personality traits.
But he is a good
But
player.
I was just gonna say I think a lot of people because of that we tend to forget. I mean, okay, you have those playoff woes, but I mean, we're talking about a 16, 17, and 8 guy. We're talking about a guy who made the all defensive team the previous 2 seasons, previous to last year, the previous 2 seasons. He made the
Elite
all defensive
defender.
team.
Elite defender.
Very elite defender. You know what I'm saying? 6'8", 6'9" point guard. A guy who schematically, I think if they are able or if they do keep Kevin Durant, if they do keep Kyrie Irving, I
He
think
can.
a guy schematically can fit right into the system. You know what I'm saying? He
Mhm.
can come right in. He won't be dependent upon offensively. People forget he is a playmaker and a creator.
Oh, he's a phenomenal playmaker. Yeah.
He's averaged 8-9 assists a game, you know what I'm saying? But he won't be looked upon to be that second scoring option like he was in Philadelphia. So he could just focus on being a facilitator and then on the other end
Be a
being
elite.
kind of a
Yeah.
defensive anchor, which Brooklyn can use right now. I know they picked up
So
Royce O'Neal from Utah, who's another really good defensive player, but I mean he could be a
it,
really
it,
interesting
it,
piece for them.
it almost sounds like he would have like, and not the same type of mindset, but he would almost have like a Draymond Green type of role,
Yeah, I mean, and that would be so perfect for this
right?
Brooklyn Net team. You know what I'm saying? Somebody
Mhm.
that'll just come in and just play their role. Once again, be a facilitator, really be a point guard for this team,
Mhm.
take some of those responsibilities off of Kyrie Irving, which if you remember, I think that's why Kyrie Irving really wanted James Harden there because James Harden can play that primary,
He,
that lead guard, and
mhm.
Kyrie Irving can kind of play off the ball and do what he does best, you know what I'm
Right,
saying?
right.
Get freaky, as I like to
Mhm.
say, you know what I'm saying? Do what he does best. And I think obviously Ben Simmons isn't James Harden, but I
No,
think as far as a playmaker and a facilitator, he can do those same things and play that same role for this Brooklyn Net team. And he's a
and I
better defender.
and I'll tell you this: you mess around and you get him and Kevin Durant on the court at the same time, and a Kyrie Irving. I mean, let's be real. Who's gonna stop him from getting to the bucket?
I mean, I and then on the flip side, you look
Mhm.
at Philadelphia, and I know we talked about a few episodes back, James Harden declining his option, taking less money, so that they have a little more money to give a couple guys, namely PJ Tucker, Shake Milton. Two
Mhm.
really solid additions to this team. And then, by all reports, from what I've been seeing,
He's been
James
getting
Harden
shape,
has been in the gym. He's
which
been
is
getting in the gym.
this is uncharacteristic.
It is, man. Because I mean, we know James. He gonna have his fun, but he's been getting in the gym. He's been popping up at a few open runs. He's starting to look like he was, a few summers back, some of those Houston summers when we
Mhm.
were seeing prime MVP Harden. Now,
Mhm.
once again, I don't know if we'll ever see that player again,
But he doesn't
but
need to be that with Joel Embiid.
he doesn't need to be that.
Right.
And then with Tyrese Maxey as well and Tobias Harris,
Mhm.
they have a few scoring options there now. You know what I'm saying? You
Right.
add Shake Milton who can come off the bench and get hot. they got a few scoring options there now. I think one could argue, however you want to flip flop them. If I was to put my money on it, I would still say Boston is the best team in the East going into
Mhm.
this season. But one could argue that Philadelphia is right there, or one A, one B. One can
It
make that argument.
it depends on how they respond. Because I
Yeah,
think I think we've been saying this about Philly the last 2 to 3 years that they're right there in contention, but it's a step they have to make. It's something missing, right? It's some key
mhm.
component, whether it's James Harden kind of turning back the time clock, maybe getting a little bit more committed, getting in the gym and buying into the program that they're trying to build. I don't know what it is, but hopefully this year they can figure it out. Because to me, they've been a top three team in the East the past 3 or 4 years.
They have, and I think they probably, I mean, unless some people would still say Kevin Durant. I'm not one to argue, but I
Mhm.
mean, I think you could say they probably have the best player in the Eastern Conference in Joel
Joel
Embiid.
Embiid,
You know
right?
what I'm saying? I mean, he's a load.
Mhm.
He seemed to finally be able to stay healthy last year
Right,
for for the majority of a season,
which was a
and that
revelation.
could pay dividends, man. So I mean, I absolutely think that's a game to look out for, and I wonder how Ben Simmons is going to handle being back in Philly. With as far as he's already been open about some of the mental issues
Mhm.
that he's
And,
having.
hey, look,
So
Philly is not the city for that.
it's not I mean, they're gonna play on that right
It
away.
is that is not the damn city to have mental health issues. God bless them.
I'm gonna say a couple more.
Okay.
Once again, all these are pretty early in the season.
Mhm.
Now this one might be a crazy one here.
Okay.
So October 21st, that's the first time we'll see the Orlando Magic play the Atlanta Hawks. Here's why I
Okay.
say that. So thus far in this, everybody likes to play in these pro-ams or whatnot. One
Mhm.
of the better pro-ams is I think it's the J Crossover pro-am. It's the one that LeBron James, ironically, was just playing in on Saturday. They ended up canceling the game early, but that's
Mhm.
the one that LeBron James was supposed to play in on Saturday, or he did play for a quarter. They canceled it in the second quarter.
Mhm.
Um, so at that very pro-am, number one pick this past year, Paulo Banchero,
Mhm.
and new Atlanta Hawks guard now, DeJounte Murray. They were getting into it. You know what I'm saying?
Oh,
They
they
were they were
was.
going at each other. It
It
was
got
getting a
it
little
got
heated.
spicy.
It got spicy, and then the beef spilled over into Twitter. You know what I'm saying? So then
Mhm.
they got to going back and forth on Twitter. Actually, and I believe that this past Saturday, two teams kind of ran into each other again, and I mean, I guess they kind of worked it out. You know what I'm saying? Just to say it is all love, but it got a little spicy there. You know what I'm saying? DeJounte
Mhm.
Murray was saying that Paulo, he became a number one pick and forgot where he came from. Like that's you know that's
Mhm.
that's big now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I forgot. I need to humble myself. I forgot where I came from. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
So I think that'll be a really interesting game there.
oh, and two young up and coming teams in the Eastern Conference. So that's
They
why
are.
that's another reason why it's going to be fun. I mean, obviously we know Atlanta has done some things, but I really like what Orlando is doing with some of the things, with some of the players that
I
they've
I,
acquired over the
I
last
do
two or three
too.
years.
I think that they um got an influx of young talent.
Yeah.
Obviously Atlanta, they have a top, you could say maybe top 15 player in the league in Trey
Trey
Young,
Young. Hmm.
and they should be in the playoffs. Maybe it may be toward the bottom, but they should be in the playoffs. I think that the acquisition of DeJounte Murray is really
Makes them
good
better.
for them because it gives Trey Young offensively, it gives Trey Young the opportunity to kind of play off the ball a little bit
Right.
because DeJounte Murray is another guy who's a really nice facilitator. I think he flirted with a triple double last year. I think he was getting about 28-8 or 29-7, something like that.
Mhm.
So he flirted with a triple double last year, and another scoring option, another guy who can have the ball in his hands, take a little bit of playmaking pressure off of Trey Young, and he can be far more aggressive offensively. So they got some nice pieces there. And then, like you said, Orlando. I mean, obviously they're young, but I like Paulo Banchero. I love Jalen Suggs last year coming out of Gonzaga. They still got Cole Anthony. They still got
Cole Anthony, yeah.
both the Wagner brothers. I
Mm-hmm.
think they got Mo and Franz Wagner.
Right.
So I mean, they got some decent little pieces there. I mean, it's gonna be a battle them making the playoffs in the East. But I think for them, for Orlando, they just really want to see improvement from their youth and just being competitive, playing competitive. They just want to
I,
see that they're going in the right direction.
I feel like Orlando is where Philly was about 6 or 7 years ago, where they just had all this young talent and didn't know what the fuck to do with it. And they just threw them on the court and they said, just
Mm,
figure it out. And it figured itself out.
trust the process. That
Trust
was
the
their
trust,
term. You know what I'm saying?
trust process. Yeah.
Trust the process.
Right.
And that's yeah. You can say that. That's Orlando this year. Like I said, they're stockpiling on young talent. And trust the process, and that's all they can do. Trust the process. They really
Yeah.
haven't had a. I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't want to forget anybody, but they really haven't had like a true superstar there since I want to say
Jameer
Dwight
Nelson.
Howard. Stop it.
you
you
know,
you
you
gonna
know,
have to let that go.
you
You
know, I'm
gonna
always
have
gonna
to
go to,
let that
you know,
go.
I'm always gonna go to bat for my boy Jameer Nelson. Anyways, oh Lord.
And then last but not least, just real quick, obviously,
Uh-huh.
Christmas Day, you know that's like prime time bat. It's kind of Christmas Day in the NBA is kind of like Thanksgiving for football. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, boom, everybody eat, boom, get around the TV. You know what I'm saying? Catch some of these Christmas Day games. For a lot of people, that's really when they start to really pay attention to the NBA right around
Right.
Christmas and then getting into New Year's.
Mhm.
Um, and then the 5 games there. You got Milwaukee at Boston. That's going to be a great one.
That's gonna be a great game. Yeah.
If Boston and Philly is 1A and 1B, Milwaukee's 1C. I
Right.
mean, you can argue all
All
three
this
teams.
neck and neck.
You can argue all three teams, being possibly the best team in the East, and
Right.
that top of the East is loaded, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Obviously Memphis going to Golden State. We know the back and forth between John Morant and Draymond Green over the internet, so that
If
should be
Draymond,
real
watch
interesting.
this, watch this. If Draymond Green is,
Man, don't get me started on Dre, but
if he is in Golden State, but another story for another day.
man, and then Denver will go to Phoenix, which should be a real good game. I'm interested. Hopefully, Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are back by then because I think if they can get those two guys back healthy in the fold, Denver could have something to say in the Western Conference.
I think they can.
Um,
Yeah.
and then you got the same Philadelphia Sixers that we were talking about playing the Knicks. I think the Knicks. I mean, it's New York. I mean, it's kind of like it's the Mecca, it's the Garden. So I mean, I'm pretty sure there was another team or two they could have put in that position and have Philly play, but okay, they chose the Knicks. All's well ends well. And then the Lakers are going to Dallas. So you got LeBron. Hopefully AD's healthy. I guess Russell Westbrook as well going to
Mhm.
play Luka Doncic, man. So I mean, all 5 of the Christmas Day games should be really interesting. I'm gonna be glued to them, and yeah, I think those games will be really telling as to how the rest of the season may play out.
And that's the crazy part about that's always been the craziest thing about the NBA to me is that it's such a slow burn, but when it finally
Mhm.
gets to that point, it's so climactic. Like after the All-Star break, like you have to watch the NBA. Like that honestly to me, that's when the playoffs really start.
Oh yeah, because
And
everybody's stocking for positions, and then honestly, the All Star break isn't even really like halfway through the season. Most teams have played probably 50, 55 games,
it's like
so now
a
it's
third of
really
the
like
season.
exactly
Yeah.
now you really got to
Yeah.
bear down, start getting your lineups down, really get into playoff mode. You
Right.
start seeing the intensity ramp up, in
Exactly.
between these games, and
Cuz
it gets real, man.
yeah, because it's not just, you mentioned just trying to get a better position seating wise. It's
Hmm.
about building momentum. Like people forget,
Oh
like
yeah, absolutely,
Boston,
absolutely.
Boston wasn't playing like that before the All Star break. As a matter of fact, it's
Absolutely.
said that Boston had last year. They probably had one of, if not the greatest, regular season
And
turnaround
yeah, in
in
season
NBA.
turnaround.
Yeah, and after the All Star break, I want to say after that they led the NBA in wins. They
They
were
did. They
yeah,
had the best record in the league after the All-Star break. They had the number one defense in the league after the All-Star
at the All
break.
Star break. Yep,
And I mean,
everybody bought in.
it took them all the way. Surprisingly, for a lot of people, it took them all the way to the finals, man. I mean, you're right, man. Just like in all sports, man. Momentum is real,
Yeah, it is.
and so you definitely want to really get that chemistry built and everything, and it really starts to hone in after the All-Star break.
Yeah. So that's the difference between, obviously we're about to talk some NFL, but that's the difference between the NBA and the NFL. The NFL so short, so you probably got about that last month, whereas the
Hmm.
NBA, got to get that last 25, 30 games to really start to figure things out, tweak lineups. Okay, how do these players play together? Really start to understand the chemistry of their team going into the postseason. So that's a to me that's a benefit in that league. So
And
that's why you
in
see
the
it
NFL, I mean, 17 game season now. I mean, every game matters. You know what I'm
every
saying?
single freaking game matters.
You drop one game, a game or two early in the season to an opponent that you probably shouldn't lose to, and now you're looking up and you battling for a division crown in your division. That would have been a lot easier for you, or you done lost a tiebreaker, all because you done smoked a game or two early in the season to
Mm-hmm.
who knows, God knows who.
Yeah. So
But speaking of the NFL, we're gonna go ahead and jump into our NFC South preview. And actually, I think we're gonna start from the bottom up.
might as well.
So we're gonna start with the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, we know that they lost a guy who was probably they're really coming into a turnaround. They're a year or two removed from losing. Who you can say was their franchise player in Julio Jones, and now finally it's came full circle, and Matt Ryan is gone. So a lot of those staples from that Super Bowl, the team that appeared in the Super Bowl, are now gone, and this is a totally different Atlanta Falcon team.
Mhm.
Um, I don't see them. I think that they may very well be right at the top of the draft next year, if I'm being honest. I mean, you add the loss of Matt Ryan, who went on to the Indianapolis Colts. Also, Calvin Ridley is going to miss the entire season, correct, with the gambling thing.
He's gonna miss the entire season.
So, I mean, that's a big hit. I think you're looking at a team that's really devoid of talent. They went out and got your boy Drake London in
Mhm.
the draft or whatnot, and I think that was a I think, as we always say, I think Atlanta was one of those teams where they could have closed their eyes and just picked the
Mhm.
best player available, and it would have fit for them. You know what I'm saying? But they went out and got Drake London. I do like that. I do like Zacchaeus. They brought back Cordero Patterson.
Mhm.
It looks like Marcus Mariota will probably at least start the season on the center for them. But they did have another, what I thought was another interesting pick in the third round, getting Desmond Ritter out
Right.
of Cincinnati at quarterback. So I think it'll be interesting to see, exactly what they can get out of him, because he showed flashes there at Cincinnati, and they
Yeah.
were a very successful program. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a team that's really devoid of talent in a division that I think is a little better than people are probably going to give credit for. But what do you think about these Atlanta Falcons?
Well, okay. So as we were just talking NBA and we were talking about Orlando, and we were talking about where Philly was, trust the process. That's where Atlanta is. Now the crazy part is you mentioned them being devoid of talent. The crazy part is when you look at their roster, they're not completely devoid of talent. They just are lacking talent in some very
Key
important
positions.
positions,
Hmm.
key positions, right? They have a young star. I don't know if you guys realize AJ Terrell is like
Oh
that.
yes. Oh
AJ
yeah.
Terrell is quietly, I want to say last year was like a top 5 rated corner in the National Football League, maybe even higher.
Oh
Um,
yes.
so you got a young stud in him who's getting better and better. They still have Grady Jarrett, still have Deion Jones, who two guys who I honestly think that if they're smart, they would probably deal them and kind of restart. But
Hmm.
maybe keep one, but I think you have to deal with one of those guys because that
They can
regimen
be
is
both of them can be some really nice pieces on some really good teams. They can be really
exactly.
beneficial to some good teams.
Exactly. Now offensive wise, you mentioned Julio Jones, and I remember I said this on the break room breakdown. Uh, I felt like the past 3 or 4 seasons that Julio Jones was there, it was almost like a waste for him, like a waste of his prime. Because I told people, it's kind of like, okay, it's kind of like me and you right now, right? Even though we have jobs, we're doing okay for ourselves and stuff like that. Would you go and buy a Ferrari right now?
No.
And it's not that it's not a nice fucking car, but is that you wouldn't. Let's be honest. If you scratch that sucker up or something happens, you can't pay. You probably can't afford the maintenance. Yeah,
I
like
can't afford the
you're
car. Sure enough, can't afford the maintenance.
right. But even if you were able to get the car, right,
Hmm.
you're not in a position to fully take advantage of the benefits of that car,
Word.
right? That was Atlanta. He was a high performance sports car, but the team wasn't good enough to truly take advantage of his talents to help them win games. So it was a good thing they moved on, but I
And he
really
and he
wish.
couldn't and speaking of Julio, he
Mhm.
couldn't stay out of his own way either because he kept getting nicked up. So
Yeah,
I
he
mean,
kept getting it up.
if it wasn't one thing, it was another. So I mean,
Mhm.
he kind of didn't help his own situation either.
Oh, true. No, no, I agree with that. Like I said, he definitely has his faults. I just would have liked for them to have traded him a little bit sooner. Sometimes you have to get ahead of a rebuild. Maybe you could have moved off of him. You still had Calvin Ridley, who I think will come back and be a stud, right?
Hmm.
If you pair him with some of the young pieces that they have right now, Drake London, who I think will be really good in his own right, and Kyle Pitts, who's already
Not just because he's from USC, right? Just
uh,
not
because
that.
he no,
Yeah.
because he's just a very unique, rare talent, right? But I'm liking what they're putting together. They got some good pieces. Marcus Mariota is a bridge. We can all agree with that. We don't know how. I don't have very high expectations. Now, maybe he
But
turns
this
back.
could be an audition for him, though.
It could.
You
And I'm
know.
going to tell you this, I'm all for that because a lot of quarterbacks don't get this type of opportunity. A lot of players don't get this
Hmm.
opportunity. So he's
Yep.
getting a 1 year audition. Now, it's a little tough because you got Desmond Ritter who's hungry, and Desmond Ritter's on his ass. Desmond
Hmm.
Ritter is not finna. He said it himself. I believe I'm a starter year one. But he was a 4 or 5 year guy at Cincinnati. I'm not mad at him. Why would you want to sit behind
Yeah.
somebody? So, but Marcus Mariota is going to be a really solid bridge. Maybe he turns the clock back to 2016, and maybe he just does enough to get them through this season. But Atlanta's in a good position because hell, even if they pick the top of next year's draft, next year is a quarterback heavy draft, right?
It is.
With
It
Bryce
is.
Young, yeah,
And
CJ,
we
just a lot of
spoke
guys,
on it. Yeah.
right? A lot of different guys. But look at some of the names that they added. Lorenzo Carter, a guy that came from the New York Giants, who I think is really starting to come into his own as a pass rusher. Georgia kid, so he's it's essentially like him coming home.
Mhm.
Eddie Goldman, your guy,
Uh,
right? Uh,
yeah, I love him in the interior, man. I love him.
and,
I
and
love him
Eddie,
in the interior, man.
Eddie Goldman's a stud. So the thing
He
is
He is.
he's a
He
stud. So
absolutely is.
he's still relatively young. His
Hmm.
issue has been health. If he could stay healthy, he could really help make their defense better. I think that they're really trying, and this is what I've been wanting for Atlanta for the better part of 20 years. I really want them to start changing their identity of how they build their team. And I think that they're doing that under this regimen, right? They're not a
Hmm.
finesse team with a defense that's fast, but can't stop the run, a little soft. They're trying to get away from that. I can tell. Um, but once again, they re-signed Grady Jarrett. They lost Russell Gage. Calvin Ridley suspended. Like I said, they lost some people, but I think they're in a good position with some of the pieces they have on offense. So whoever the quarterback is in the future, whether it's Marcus Mariota or a Bryce Young or someone who will be coming in next year's draft, I think they'll be in a really really good position. And defensively, just build it piece by piece. You got AJ Terrell, you got Grady Jarrett, and I know they drafted a pass rusher from Penn State, who's pretty solid. So, like I said, they have some pieces. They have a lot more work they have to do defensively. But
Hmm.
if they just trust the process, we could look up 2.5 years if they're patient, especially with the head coach. Uh, they could be a playoff contender.
Two questions. Number one, and you talked about Desmond Ritter really feeling like he's good enough to be a starter year one. Um, could you see him at some point this season, you know, becoming the starter? Obviously depending upon Mariota's play and where they are, because I feel like I feel like even if Mariota goes out and has a good show, and even if he's playing well, I just don't see this team winning many games. And so I almost see it almost like a situation with Davis Mills last year in Houston. Why not put this kid out there and see what you got?
That might have been one of the best comparisons you've ever made.
Mm-hmm.
Davis Mills and Tyrod Taylor. This is a very similar situation. Now, Marcus Mariota, the issue is he's not head and shoulders better than Desmond Ritter right now. He's just maybe a
Mm-hmm.
little better, and obviously he's the better athlete.
More,
We know Marcus
mm-hmm.
Mariota is definitely athletic, but he doesn't have very much margin for error, and Desmond Ritter is not laying down. So, and I think Desmond Ritter knows as well. Like, if I'm gonna make something shake, I got to do it this year
Oh yeah.
because Desmond Ritter's not stupid. He knows, he understands what's coming in next year's draft. So it's gonna be a rat race.
Thanks, babe. That's my wife. FYI. Shout out to the
AKA
missus.
silent
Thanks,
partner.
honey bun.
Uh,
The silent partner.
uh, but no, it's gonna be it's gonna be an interesting year quarterback wise because you have two guys, one trying to resurrect his career and one trying to save his fucking career before it even gets started. Because Desmond Ritter could get mess around and be buried on this roster like I'm trying to think of a guy. He could mess around and get Josh Rosen, even though he wasn't a first round pick. But I mean, hey, some guys' careers end before it ever gets a chance to get started. So I think Desmond Ritter sees that. He acknowledges that. He sees what's ahead of him. He doesn't believe that Marcus Mariota is better than him. And
But
so
like you said, I mean, you talking about a 4 or 5 year guy,
yeah,
at school. I mean,
it's not a baby. It's a
so
grown man
exactly.
with kids.
I was just
Yeah,
gonna say,
he's
you
a
talking about
father.
a
Yeah,
grown man. You talking about a 23, 24-year-old. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
a
He's
little
not like a
kid. He's not a
he's not a
20-year-old kid coming. Yeah.
he's not an sure. And reason why I'm interested to see how things unfold with Desmond Ritter is because of some of the things he did culture building wise in Cincinnati. Um,
Mm-hmm.
some of those things could very well carry over, and we can look up and he could be the quarterback for this football team. I told people there's not really much weaknesses to Desmond Ritter's game, right? It's not like he has a weak arm. He may not be the greatest athlete, right? But it's not like he's a statue back there, right? So he can do anything necessary for the quarterback position. He kind of gives me. I think I told you this. He kind of has some Dak Prescott similarities to me as far as intangibles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some people kind of sleep on his playmaking ability and his arm talent and some of the throws he can make. So it's going to be a fun. But yeah, Desmond Ritter can definitely be a starter for this football team sooner rather than later. It all depends on, is Marcus Mariota going to be able to turn back the time clock to 2016 when he was actually like a Pro Bowl talent.
How many wins do you see for this team?
5 max.
I
Max.
agree, bro. They'll be right back at the top of this draft.
But they know
But it
that.
could be a competitive. Who knows? Though it could be a competitive.
Yeah, you could deal with a roster built like this. 5 wins is good, but you have to. It's how you win those 5 and how you lose some of these games. Are you getting blown out?
Mhm.
Are you fighting tooth and nail? Like I said, we talked about Detroit, who was in a similar boat. They lost games, but Detroit was fighting every tooth and nail. So I'm excited to
Oh
see
yeah,
that they
you
take
could
this
see
year.
that they're going in the right direction. And then even if you guys, I don't know if anybody has tuned in, but I've caught an episode or two. They're on Hard Knocks this season,
Yeah.
and I've caught an episode or two. And even if you guys check them out on Hard Knocks this season, and you'll see like hey, these guys are for real. Like
Scrap it.
the culture has changed in Detroit. The culture has changed for
Hey,
real.
what did Dan Campbell say? I don't care if you have one toe or two ass cheeks. I'm gonna beat your ass or two butt
Man,
cheeks. I'm like, yo, I'm like, what? Yo, Dan Campbell's hilarious,
he
and he's
is,
serious
man.
too.
He
Yeah, so
is.
it's funny, man. So yeah, but that's Atlanta. Like I said, 5 wins, 5 wins max. Could be less. Could be an abysmal season. But the thing for them is, can they see some potential in some of the young players that they have? What's next?
I'm with you. I'm with you. Let's get to these Carolina Panthers. A very interesting team. I think the big storyline obviously is they brought in Baker Mayfield, and by all reports, he's won the job, so he'll be that week one
Eh,
starter.
just reports. I'm just playing.
I mean, he's going to be that week one starter, which
Yep.
FYI brings up a very enticing week one matchup against his former team, the Cleveland Browns.
Hmm.
So I really wonder if that has something to do with the decision. You know what I'm saying? But I think if nothing else, you'll see Baker come out with a chip on his shoulder that week, and you'll see him ready to play that week. Um, but I mentioned earlier that this division to me is a little better than people probably give credit for, and I think that this Carolina team can be a really sneaky team.
They
They still
can.
they if they can stay healthy,
Hmm.
if Christian McCaffrey, obviously he has to stay on the field. But
Hmm.
they got some obviously Christian McCaffrey when healthy. I mean, the last time we seen him fully healthy, you can argue he was the best running back in the game.
You could
Um,
argue that.
they got DJ Moore, they got Robbie Anderson, they got Terrence Marshall. Defensively, I mean, they still got Brian Burns, whom I love. They picked up Matt Ioannidis, Shaq Thompson. Like they got some guys there. J.C. Horns coming back this year.
Hmm.
The talent is there. You know what I'm saying? Like they could surprise somebody as a 9 or 10 win team. I think if they could max out and get that, I think a lot of it depends on the health of Christian McCaffrey, and then B, the play of I guess now Baker Mayfield. Can he be Baker Mayfield from 2 years ago when he got Cleveland to the playoffs and they won a playoff game, or could he be the Baker Mayfield from last year who was mediocre at best? But what do you think about this Carolina Panther team?
Well, first I'll start this by saying that they were my sleeper pick last year in the NFC. I thought Carolina was going to be a playoff team. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey got hurt and the whole bottom fell out. Because
Hmm.
remember my guy Sam Darnold started the season out hot,
He
and then
did,
Christian
he
McCaffrey
did,
and Christian McCaffrey got hurt. It was
and
you
yep.
know,
Because I
as
think they
much
were like 4-1 or something, right?
they were 3-1, 3-0, 3-1, somewhere up in there,
And it
right?
went south.
Yeah, it went south. It went, and so obviously that talks about how important Christian McCaffrey is to that football team as a whole. As far as the quarterback situation goes, it's kind of tough for me because one, I'm gonna root for my USC guys. I always have love. I still love Sam Darnold's potential as far as like some of the things he can do physically. He's a big kid. He can move. He has a strong arm. But he's probably still a little shell shocked from some of the things he experienced over there with the Jets.
Hmm.
But it's tough because although I love Sam Darnold, you know me, I've always went to bat for Baker Mayfield and told people that
Yeah.
he's better than people make it seem like he is. People make it seem like he's an abysmal quarterback. He's really not. Um, I think, obviously at the trajectory of his career, he's more of a game manager, and if you pair him with a strong running game, that's how you get the best out of them. But there are certain stretches. We look at the 2020 season when they won that playoff game.
Hmm.
There are certain stretches of year where he gets into a groove, and Baker Mayfield can pass with the best of them. And he's
And
and
I don't think like my thing is, I don't think that Baker's a terrible quarterback at all. I
Mhm.
think that I guess I'm not sure if he's a franchise guy. Like I'm not sure if he's the type of quarterback that can flat out take your team to the next level. I'm not sure he goes to a team and your team just automatically gets better. I
Well,
put him kind of, and I you may disagree with this, but I see him as kind of like a Kirk Cousins, a guy who I don't think is just a guy who I don't think he's just going to come and just change your life, but a guy that you can win with, a guy who can make some throws and make some plays.
well, I'll say this. Let's put some respect on Kirk Cousins' name. I think Kirk Cousins is definitely much better than Baker Mayfield. But I think Baker Mayfield is a lot
Ooh,
closer.
I think I
Yeah,
think I
Kirk.
really think that they're neck and neck. And I
Nah,
and I I've been a Kirk Cousins fan.
Kirk Cousins is we got to put some respect on his name. He damn near had, like, if you look at his, he damn near had like an MVP caliber type of season. Now the team around him, especially defensively, they were struggling, but yeah, I think Kirk Cousins is definitely much better, and we've
And,
seen
and
him
he
do a
has
lot.
studs all around him offensively.
Yeah,
Like,
he does. Now as far as Baker Mayfield goes, his issues to me isn't talent wise, because to me Baker Mayfield, he can get better.
mhm.
It's maturity issues, and based off of some of the things I heard, he maybe didn't gel well with everybody in that locker room. So his issues are intangibles, leadership, and maturity. But make no mistake about it, he can play this game, and you can win with Baker Mayfield. You know,
I agree.
like I said, we've talked about it all the time. He's accomplished more than a lot of quarterbacks. So when I see people kind of get on him and say, "Oh, he's a bum," or "He's just in the third," okay, well, he won you one playoff game. Then you take a Deshaun Watson who has went to a playoff team and has one career playoff win, right?
But I think a
So
lot of it, I think it's a lot of pressure on him because he was the number one pick.
true.
And
I
so
mean,
that comes with a lot of pressure and
I
his
yeah.
his moxie, his personality, the
The
way he carries
bravado, yeah,
himself. Yeah, it
yeah,
doesn't help.
yeah. Okay, and I can get that. He may not be the humblest of guys, but like I said, we've talked about this before on Ruben Sports. Cleveland he's the best quarterback Cleveland's had in 30 years, maybe more. Right.
Yeah.
So there has to be a point to where you look at it like that, like, damn, he is something the best we ever had. But kind of not to digress too much, Carolina as a whole, this is a great situation for him. He's going to have a surplus of weapons. I think as a collective, he has better collective weapons in Carolina than he had in Cleveland. Christian McCaffrey, I think we can go ahead and say he's when healthy, you can argue he's the best running back in the game. And he's
Mhm.
complete. I'm a big proponent on being complete. Christian McCaffrey, unlike Derrick Henry and Dalvin and some of these other guys we talk about, he can block, he can block, he can receive, and he can run. So he's a very complete back. His only issue was durability. But
Mhm.
they got Christian McCaffrey. You mentioned the receivers. DJ Moore, underrated. Robbie Anderson, if used right, very effective deep threat.
Oh yeah.
Terrence Marshall, coming out of LSU, guys had high hopes for him. Obviously, he didn't have the biggest first year what we projected, but he still can be very good in his own right. Now, defensively, we talked a little bit about the front seven with Brian Burns and Matt Ioannidis, Derek Brown, Yatur Gross-Moss, Matus. I don't want to say the name, chopping up the boy's name up. But what I'm excited for is that young cornerback trio, right? Because remember, they traded for CJ Henderson from
Mhm.
Jacksonville, who was a first round pick. He played some quality minutes for him once they acquired him. You have Dante Jackson, who they re-signed, who's very good,
Okay.
and then J.C. Horn's going to come
AC
back and
Horn.
slide, and he's going to slide into that nickel spot. And then at safety, you still got Jeremy Chin, stud,
Yep.
strong safety, and they signed ex-Cowboy Xavier Woods, who's going to be free safety and going to do some high stuff. And you may see him come down. He'll come down and hit folks too. So they got some good stuff
Nice
working.
young secondary. Nice
Nice
young secondary.
young, exactly. Yeah, all these guys are in there. I don't think any of these
I
guys
don't think.
are in their
Oh
30s.
yeah.
All these
Nope.
guys are young, yeah. So Carolina is a team that could possibly turn it around sooner. They have all the pieces. It's just about putting it together. Can Christian McCaffrey stay healthy, and can Baker Mayfield? I feel like he's trying
Which
to
Baker
right his
Mayfield are we gonna get?
I tell you this: if we get Christian McCaffrey, if we can get Christian McCaffrey for 15, 16 games, we'll get 2020 Baker Mayfield probably, and then some because they have better weapons.
So what record would you predict for them, and could you see them sneaking into the playoffs?
I can. I'll say minimum 7 games, and I'll go max, and I'll go ahead and say 9 games. I think they're between 7 and 9 games, but they can sneak into that wild card spot. But that division this year is going to be tougher, and obviously we'll
It
talk
is.
about it moving forward.
It is. It is. I'm kind of in the same room. I'm gonna say 7 to 9, only because I think the next two teams that we're going to talk about, one is obviously better, and then I think New Orleans, who we're going to get to in a second. I think New Orleans is just a tad bit better than them, if they can stay healthy, because they have a few guys with some injury issues as well.
Mhm.
But I think, if healthy, obviously Tampa Bay is probably the best team in the division, but I think New Orleans is a little bit better than they are. And so I just think by default they're in a, a, a pretty solid division. And so yeah, I see them. Like you said, I mean, I'm predicting 7 to 9 wins. I think they can max out at 10 wins and maybe
Mhm.
sneak into that last playoff. If I would not be surprised if they snuck in and got that last playoff spot.
Yeah. So
But, but
what? Mark my word. One division is going to put out 3 teams.
oh yeah,
One
I
division is going
yeah.
to put 3 teams in the playoff. So last year was the NFC West. I don't see that happening this year. So some division is going to put out 3 teams, and then
And
you may
it
see
may very well be this. It may very well be this division.
it could. It very well could. There was a few years ago where the NFC South was the shit and I eat, right?
Oh yeah.
So maybe we get back to that. Who knows?
All right, moving on. We got the New Orleans Saints. Obviously they'll be getting Jameis Winston back, and I think they're legitimately, handing Jameis Winston the keys. They're gonna be moving. I think Taysom Hill is gonna be playing like tight end or something now.
Which is good for him.
It is.
Give
It is. It
give him a
is.
position. He's big enough. He's athletic enough for it. Let him stick to it.
And I think they'll find 4 or 5 times a game to get the ball in his hands.
Mhm.
Whether it's some sort of option with him, maybe they run a little wildcat with him or something. They'll find 4 or 5 ways
Yeah.
to get the ball into his hands. But it seems like Jameis Winston will be their quarterback. I think obviously with them they have to stay healthy. You mentioned Alvin Kamara a lot, and how this is the first time where he's really been like, or last year was the first time that he's really been like their primary back, and
Right.
you really kind of seen, maybe some of the durability issues that may come along with that with him.
Right.
And then, obviously Winston, Kamara, Michael Thomas, can he finally get on the field? Can he be that Michael Thomas of a trillion and two catches that we seen a few years back?
Mhm.
Because if he can stay healthy, we talk about some of these receiving cores around the league. You got Michael Thomas. They did get Jarvis Landry. They got
Chris
Chris
Olave.
Olave after draft. So we talk about some of these receiving cores around the league. I mean, and then if Taysom Hill, depending on the type of tight end he may or may not be able to become, but just as a receiving core, those three
Mhm.
guys right there, they're pretty darn solid. You know what I'm saying? And then obviously, defensively, Cameron Jordan is, a mainstay there. They picked in the secondary, they picked up Marcus May and Tyrann Mathieu. And I love both of those pickups. Obviously, the Mario Davis is still there. I mean, this is a talented team, at per usual. This is a talented
Mhm.
team. Um, I guess with them, it's just a matter of health.
Right.
And then really, I'm really interested to see if Jameis Winston can stay healthy. Which FYI, I know he missed probably the last 2 weeks, but today he got back on the field today. They say he was doing 7-on-7s or something today, so he got back on the field today. I'm just interested to see, can a healthy Jameis Winston for a full season, how far can he take them? Because in a little bit of time that we did see him last year, he wasn't doing too bad. But what do you think about the Saints team?
So I like him. And it's funny because obviously we laugh a lot about Jameis, but Jameis has ability. Like you can if his only issue has ever been turnovers, and obviously he's battled health as of recently, but if he can cut that down and he can stay on the football field with these players that he has, they'll be damn okay. Question marks I do have. Dennis Allen. I've never been the biggest believer in Dennis Allen as a head coach. He's a great coordinator, and he's done some phenomenal things coaching that unit over there. I mean, the Saints have been probably one of the top 3 or 4 most consistent defenses in the National Football League over the past 4 or 5 years. Right, that's how good they are. So can he uphold and keep that standard? Because sometimes you get, like I told you, he was the head coach of the Raiders. He's a defensive guy, and the Raiders have one of the worst defenses in the National Football League. Right. So
some guys are better suited as coordinators. I mean, and we'll see if that's the case with Dennis Allen, but some guys are just better suited as coordinators.
Yeah, look at Wade Phillips, right? He's a phenomenal coordinator, but you don't want to make him your head coach. Same thing with Romeo Cornell. Another story for another day. But right, but that's my question mark as far as Dennis Allen. But if you look at this roster, they really have everything. They have an offensive line. I think they're having a battle at left tackle with Hurst, and they drafted the kid at a UNI, Trevor Penning, who he gets into a fight like every fucking practice. I'm like, dude, but so the intensity. So I guess what he lacks in technique, he makes up for in intensity. And I'm watching, I'm like, man, this dude's swinging at everybody. So he's gotten suspended, I think, a couple of times for getting into fights. But he could possibly be their starter at left tackle. Outside and look at every other position, running back. You mentioned Alvin Kamara. Remember, they did a midseason trade and they brought Mark Ingram back. Yeah, they brought Mark Ingram back, which I'm sure he's going to be his same effective self. They're a really good 1-2 punch together. Then we talk about the receivers. You mentioned Jarvis Landry, who we know is going to do some great things in the slot for him. Michael Thomas is going to come back. They drafted Chris Olave. One thing I say about Michael Thomas, this is going to be the most receiver talent he's ever had around him. Yeah. His last year, it was 2019 where he was, essentially the best receiver in football for that year. Had Traquan Smith as his number 2. So nobody wasn't like no coverage.
Still on the team, but I mean, and he's probably going to slide down the depth chart.
Probably to number 5 and possibly not even make the team, because it's a guy that we glazed over. It's an undrafted kid, played in Tennessee, and he really started to make his mark last year. And him and Jameis have a very good connection. His name is Marquez Callaway. Yeah, we're number 1. Deep threat, sure-handed, actually showed up to be clutch in certain moments. And him and Jameis, they really do have chemistry. And he's going to be their number 4 guy. And don't be surprised I'll be honest, don't be surprised if you see him become their number 3 guy. Right? He's really starting to put the pieces together. So that's on the offensive side. Defensive side of the ball, they still got Demario Davis, who's one of the better linebackers in the football league. They have all his talent. Marcus Davenport is looking like he's taking the next step in his development. They drafted a defensive lineman from Houston, I want to say 1 to 2 years back, Peyton, and hopefully he can make that next jump. They still got Marquise Lattimore, and then obviously, they were able to get May and Tyrann Mathieu to pair a safety to replace Malcolm Jenkins and Marcus Williams. So I think defensively, you may see some of the same things. This team doesn't have that many question marks. They're very complete. It's just about how is the head coach going to do, and obviously we look at the quarterback. Will Jameis Winston seize this opportunity and become the player that people thought he could be coming out of Florida State? But to make no mistake about it, they're a 10 to 11 win team. And we mentioned Tampa Bay. They have had Tampa Bay's fucking number the last 2 years.
Especially in the regular season. Yeah.
Especially in the regular season. So, this Saints team is nothing to be trifled with. You're right. They just need to get healthy.
I agree. And we'll get to Tampa Bay this year. In a minute, because especially with some of the developments with Tampa Bay and their line, and we'll get to that in a second. But especially with some of the developments in Tampa Bay, I think now that gap between those two teams has got
starting to closing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can
Um,
definitely see that.
but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely with you. I definitely think that if they can stay healthy, and that's Winston, Kamara, Michael Thomas, if they can stay healthy, I'm with you. I think they're easily a 10-win team.
Mhm.
Who knows? They could get to 11, 12 wins. Really battle for this NFC South division. I along with you, I do have my question marks about Dennis Allen,
Mhm.
but I mean, I just think that there's so much influx of talent, and I think that the culture is just already set there to where I
Mhm.
think maybe they can kind of overcome some of the shortcomings that he may have. And so if they can
And
stay healthy, I'm with you. They're 10, 11 win team. They'll
and
fight for the division.
right. And to go along with this talent, they got Pete Carmichael, who's their offensive coordinator. So they're getting some continuity offensively. Right. So
Hmm.
even though they lost Sean Payton, who we know is an offensive genius, they're going to keep one of his disciples and Pete Carmichael. So it should be very smooth. But I'll give you a hot take.
Okay.
If Jameis comes out hot, if Jameis if Jameis comes out hot, I don't. We're not even talking. We won't even be talking NFC South. I think that they instantly become a top 2 to 3 team in the NFC as a whole. If Jameis comes out hot, if he can pick up where he left off, because actually last year we look up, he really didn't play that bad. He actually was pretty good before he got hurt.
He was and I might have to double check this, but I think he was like 11 TDs to 2 interceptions or something before he got hurt. 12 TDs, 2 interceptions, something like that before he got hurt.
Something very 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 positive touchdown to interception ratio, very efficient. But if he picks up, takes that, if he makes a jump, they're one of the top teams instantly in NFC with what they have defensively and on the offensive side of the ball. They're very complete.
I agree. I agree. I agree.
Right.
So it'll definitely be interesting to see. I'm with you. At least 10 wins. 10. I'm gonna say 10 to 12. I think they'll battle for this division crown.
Hmm.
Um, but I think right now, and with a slight edge, I'm gonna give it to this next team here, which would be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think before the season or before training camp started, if you would have asked me, my favorites in the NFC, I probably would have said probably the Rams one and probably Tampa Bay two, interchangeable or whatnot. But since training camp has went along, I'm not gonna lie, I am really concerned about this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Um, they lost Ryan Jensen indefinitely. Um,
Aaron Stinney.
Marpet retired, and then Stinney just tore his ACL, so he's
Hmm.
going to be out for the season. So now they're going to be going into the season with 3 new offensive linemen, and then I don't know if you noticed, but Tom Brady has been gone from training camp. He's
He
been
took
gone
he
for
took a
about
hi- he took a hiatus. Yeah.
so he's been gone for about a week or so, and I think that it's going to be really important for him to really get back in there and build a rapport with these guys because now he's got 3 new linemen. You know what I'm saying? And if we don't know nothing else, we know that Tom Brady is best when he's kept on his feet. If you can get a
Right.
little pressure to him, you might see a different Tom Brady, especially going to age 45 now. He's
Right.
never been extremely mobile anyway, so that has been a cause that's gave me a little cause for concern here. But obviously, I mean, another team, we know what they have. I mean, Leonard Fournette came back. They did bring Chris Godwin back. Obviously, they still got Mike Evans. They signed Russell Gage and Julio Jones,
Both from yeah.
uh who from a lot of reports, people have been saying Julio Jones has looked really good in camp so far.
Hmm. Right.
Um, Obviously Gronkowski retired, but they still got Cameron Braid. So and they
He's
signed
solid.
Kyle Rudolph. So
Hmm.
I mean, like I said, my big concern for them is obviously their O line, and then defensively, they picked up my boy Akeem Hicks, man, and I I adore Akeem Hicks. Like
Akeem Hicks is a stud.
all caps. Like that is
Hmm.
my another guy who kind of struggled at times staying healthy. But man, I mean, he was a real anchor for my Bears, man, and I'm gonna miss him, man. But picked up a real stud there. I mean, they got names all over, man. Vita Vea, William Golston, Lamonte Davis, Shaq Barrett. They still talk about a young secondary. Okay, Murphy Bunton, Antoine Winfield Jr., Mike Edwards, Carlton Davis. They Jamel Dean, Logan. Like you talk about a young secondary. And there's another team with a young secondary, but another year wiser. I really do expect their secondary to probably be one of the better secondaries in the league. Just seeing how they're just kind of guessing their progression or whatnot.
Mhm.
Like I said, I mean, I do see 11, 12 wins for this season, but I'm a little more tentative to say that now because, like I said, I think the gap has gotten closer because those losses on the offensive line are huge for these Buccaneers, man.
And I agree. I agree. They're substantial, but I think the culture that they have and the strength that they have on the defensive side of the ball will ultimately carry them through. I think it'll be some turbulence, definitely on the offensive side of the ball because it looks different. Obviously, you lose Stinney, you lose Ryan Jensen, so that can ultimately hurt your running game, which to me already wasn't great with Leonard Fournette. But you lose Gronk, which was a very pivotal piece, and you have Kyle Rudolph, who at this stage of his career is a little bit more of a blocker. Cameron Brate is balanced, but I mean he's not a world beater as an athlete or anything. He's just a consummate pro. I think him and Kyle Rudolph is kind of similar,
He
but
doesn't bring that same fear as the
he
connection
does not.
of Brady to Gronk did.
It doesn't, not in the least bit. But a Julio Jones, who I think if they use him properly can have a resurgence. And I say this all the time. If they use him the way Arizona used Larry Fitzgerald in the latter years of his career, you could see him have a resurgence. Put him solely in the slot and let him operate and do things of that, give him a lot of different route combinations, move him
Kind of
around, hide
similar to
him.
what they were doing with Antonio Brown before the Jets,
True, true. Very much so. I think he can fill that role, right? And he's a superior athlete. But if you can get him in some one-on-one situations, I think that's how you maximize Julio Jones. But they still got Russell Gage, who is solid
Yeah.
in his own right. So the receiving core is a little bit more full. I'm interested to see how Chris Godwin comes back. I ain't gonna lie, it's a little early. I mean, I wasn't. He tore his AC. Think about this. If I'm not mistaken, Chris Godwin tore his ACL either right around the same time or after Michael Gallup, and he's already coming back. So it was a little fast. Some guys are freaks of nature, so they can do it.
Yeah.
But
Was
I'm
it that
interested.
was it that early in the season for Godwin?
It was later in the
Because
season.
I feel
It
like
was later in the season. No,
okay,
Michael
because
Gallup.
I was
Yeah,
I was gonna say I feel like Michael Gallup tore his maybe like mid season or something.
no, he tore his the end of the season. He tore his against Arizona towards the
Okay,
latter end of the season.
okay,
So that just shows you Chris Godwin came back very, very fast. So I think he tore it in about November, December timeframe. But looking at the defensive side of the ball, I love Akeem Hicks' fit in that system, pairing him with Vita Vea, William Golston,
hmm
right? He's going to be, no offense, he's going to upgrade to what Sue was for them. I think at this trajectory, he's a better player than Sue.
yeah,
And you still got Levante David and David White. You know, they're gonna be solid defensively. Secondary, they're still gonna have some question marks. They signed Keanu Neal, who's moving back to
hmm
safety. He's gonna be their starting strong safety, and if I'm not mistaken, Antoine Winfield is gonna slide over to free. So it'll look a little bit different. He can play single high. He's smart enough, and he definitely has just enough range to get it done. But
But do you see
that's
Keanu Neal more as like a box safety though?
he's a box
Like
safety. He's a
okay,
he's a rover.
more of a okay.
He's a rover. He can't cover. He can't cover to save his damn life. Not gonna get his hand on very many balls, but he's gonna come down here
He'll
and
come up
smack.
and play the run. Hmm
He'll play. He'll come up and play the run. He may catch a tip drill. Who knows? Right? He may catch a tip drill interception. But you know, Todd Bowles is the head coach now, so that's gonna be interesting to see how they move forward. You
And
know,
they say even last year, in the last couple of years, he's pretty much been running he's been kind of the de facto head coach anyway. You know, he's been running the practices and whatnot for them anyway.
And one thing Bruce Arians has always been consistent about is giving credit to his coaches. And
Mm-hmm.
he's always said, and that's what I love about Bruce Arians. He's always been like, when they try to give him credit, he's always been hands off. Like, don't give me credit. Give these guys credit. They run this, they do this. So, he put Todd Bowles in a very great position to succeed. Obviously, not like what it was when he was coaching the Jets, right? So he's getting
Right.
a very well put together team. To me, Tampa Bay is a 12-win team at a minimum. Could
Mm-hmm.
easily be more. We'll see how they weather the storm offensively with some of the losses that they've had on the offensive line. But I would say another question mark I have for them is the running game. How are they going to manufacture a running game? Fournette's good, but I don't think Fournette is. He already has some limitations as a runner himself. But now you get some injuries on the offensive line, then it kind of makes that situation a little worse. They lost Ronald Jones, who
Mm-hmm.
I like them as a 1-2 pairing. Maybe individually they weren't great, but as a 1-2 pairing they were effective. So,
I think you're
lot,
gonna see. Not to cut you off. I think you're gonna obviously Fournette's the number one back, but I think you're gonna see a little more of Giovanni Bernard though. No, and he is on the team. I think you can see a little more of him, especially in like third down situations. I
like a
mean, both of
James
them are
White.
pretty like James White, yeah. But
Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, like both of them are pretty serviceable catching the ball at the back. Actually, Leonard Fournette past couple of seasons has proven to be a slightly better pass catcher than I thought he was, out of the
right,
backfield.
right. I agree. Yeah.
But yeah, I actually think you'll kind of see Giovanni Bernard take a little bit more of a role there, and maybe become running back number 2 for them.
Yeah, no, I could definitely see it, and plus it fits into what Tom Brady likes to do. Remember, some of those years in New England, they didn't have a running game, so they manufactured a running game through the short pass
So
game
that
with
short
running back.
passing. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So it can have a similar effect. Giovanni Bernard is fit for it. They'll figure it out. Tom's a leader. He took a hiatus. I mean, let's be honest. If it if it's anybody else, I panic. But this is fucking Tom Brady, and his commitment to the game is second to none. So if he took a hiatus, it's because he needed it. So
Yeah, I think for me, if put a gun in my head, I'm still going to say they're a 12, 13 win team. I still say
right.
they win this division, but I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if we looked up at the end of the season and they're fighting for a playoff spot, because I'm really worried about those new additions on the O line.
Well, my questions for them is not whether they'll make the playoffs. It's will they win their division, or will they just be a wild card team? Um,
Yeah,
so that's where it lies with them. To me, they're gonna be a playoff team and possibly even contend this year, because these are the challenges that championship caliber teams go through. Can you overcome attrition? Everybody has to overcome attrition. Can you overcome adversity? Can you overcome question marks as far as your culture? There are a lot of people, a lot of whispers of Tom Brady going to other teams. There are a lot of whispers of Tom Brady pushing Bruce Arians out, which is why Bruce Arians is
hmm
no longer the head coach. A lot of whispers, but that stuff breaks championship caliber teams. So if they overcome this, man, don't be surprised if they power through and they right back they in the NFC title game. Come January, February time frame.
we
So
shall see, man. We shall see.
yeah. But my Cowboys played them week 1, so I'll take the offensive line injuries.
And that one's in Dallas this year, right? Or is it in Tampa? Because I felt like last year they went to Tampa for game 1.
Might have been. Let's
Matter
look.
of fact, I'm almost sure Dallas went to Tampa for game 1, because Tampa was just off the championship. They wasn't gonna play on the road game 1,
Let's look. It
so it got to be
is.
in
It's in
Dallas then.
Dallas. It's in Dallas. Yeah,
Okay,
you're right. It's in
Dallas
Dallas.
gonna be
So
rocking, man. I might have to
well, we'll
at least
see.
go
Yeah.
tailgate or something. It might be rocking now.
We'll see what happens. The team looking a little better. But it's gonna be a fun year. And obviously, guys, this was the end of our training camp preview. We've done every division. Um, so we're wrapping up. Everybody should be getting their fantasy. I know we're having our fantasy draft on the third.
That's the 4th, I believe. That's
The
Sunday.
fourth, that Sunday, right? The week before preseason will be essentially camp come to an end, and it'll be time to
hmm
kind of get things percolating. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. So everybody get your, everybody good luck on your fantasy drafts and stuff like that. Hope you learned a little bit based off of what we've covered over the last 4 to 5 weeks, covering these different divisions and things of that nature.
Word, and don't forget, Rouge and Sports Community on Twitter Spaces every Saturday, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, uh,
Mm-hmm.
2 2 p.m. Central Time.
Right.
Um, Break Room Breakdown.
Break Room Breakdown. Another episode coming next Tuesday. Right. Should be an interesting topic. I'll let you guys figure that out for yourself. But we actually just released an episode um, just about a week and a half ago, covering fantasy, right? So
Covering fantasy, right? Yeah.
covering fantasy with good Jake, the fantasy guy, gave a really phenomenal breakdown. So if you guys definitely get the chance, go check that out. It's we're on all platforms: Apple, Google, Spotify.
Word. And then as always, we'll be right back here next Monday, same time as always, man.
Yeah,
We
with some
we
hot topics.
word.
Wait,
We
so that's gonna be
definitely
right. That's gonna be right after our draft, huh?
no, not next, not
Next
our
Monday.
draft is next Sunday, the 4th, not this Sunday.
Right. Damn. Okay, it feels so close. My bad. Yeah, it's coming. It's time. Just feels like it's
It
collapsed, but
is,
no.
man.
Yeah. So, yeah. So a lot of fun to be had. NFL season here. We'll be talking some college football next time. So stand by for that.
I was just about to say that, man. We might have to at least give a little time to this college football season coming up, man, because this should be interesting as well.
Oh, it's time. It's definitely time. So yeah. But outside of that, man, um, everybody have a blessed Monday. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for tuning in. Everybody that chimed in and commented. And we look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Much love. God bless.